Number 15, the Stanford Prison's Echo. Ah, the infamous Stanford Prison Experiment, where ordinary college students were thrown into a fake prison assigned to be either guards or prisoners, and chaos erupted. Sounds like a terrible reality show, right? Well, here's the disturbing truth. The experiment wasn't just about exploring human cruelty. It was about how easily normal people can slip into monstrous roles when given unchecked power or stripped of their identities. In just 6 days, guards became sadistic tyrants, and prisoners descended into despair. Dr. Zimbardo's 1971 study had to be shut down prematurely because of the sheer brutality unleashed. It wasn't about selecting bad apples. It was the power of the system itself. The disturbing takeaway? Your nice, safe identity can crumble faster than you think when you're handed a uniform and a position of authority. Basically, the Stanford Prison Experiment showed how easily normal folks can turn into monsters, proving that sometimes the real villain is the environment, not the individual. Number 14, Little Albert's Cry. Imagine using a helpless baby to demonstrate how fear can be created. This is exactly what happened in the 1920s when John B. Watson and his assistant conditioned a baby, Little Albert, to fear harmless, fluffy things by pairing them with loud, terrifying noises. The result? The baby began to fear anything furry, including a rabbit, dog, and even a Santa Claus mask. The disturbing truth here? This experiment didn't just show how fear can be conditioned. It demonstrated the real, lasting harm caused by manipulating a child's psyche. Albert was left with a lifelong phobia, and the experiment wasn't even reversed. So, congrats, little Albert. You've become the poster child for the darker side of classical conditioning. Basically, it's the most unethical way to prove that fear can be learned, and that scientists sometimes play with lives to make a point. Number 13, the monster study's scars. Here's a mind-bending, chilling truth for you. In the 1930s, a study meant to help children with speech impediments ended up being an agonizing lesson in psychological cruelty. The monster study involved deliberately telling orphaned children they stuttered, even if they didn't. The goal? To prove that speech impediments could be caused by negative reinforcement. What actually happened? Many of these kids were psychologically scarred, became withdrawn, and developed actual speech issues, some of which persisted for life. It's the perfect example of how psychological abuse can ruin someone's self-esteem. Basically, words can be weapons, seriously dangerous ones. This study is a glaring reminder that science's pursuit of knowledge can sometimes cross the line into monstrous behavior. Number 12, Milgram's shocking obedience. How far would you go if someone in authority told you to hurt someone? Well, in Stanley Milgram's 1960s experiment, an alarming 65% of participants delivered what they believed to be lethal shocks to a person simply because a guy in a lab coat told them to. The disturbing truth? It's not just that people followed orders. They followed them without question, even as the person on the other side screamed in pain. The experiment, designed to test the limits of obedience, tore away the illusion that only bad people commit atrocities. It showed that anyone can be coerced into horrific acts under the right conditions. Basically, Milgram didn't just test obedience, he revealed a terrifying reality. Authority figures have the power to override your conscience, and we all have the potential to become perpetrators in the right circumstances. Number 11, the third wave's fascist fright. In 1967, a high school history teacher named Ron Jones wanted to show his students how a group of otherwise normal people could slip into a fascist regime. So he created an experiment called the third wave, and what followed was terrifying. Within days, students who were part of a supposed movement began to adopt authoritarian behaviors. Enforcers, recruiters, and followers of a leader emerged. The experiment quickly escalated to the point where Jones feared it could spiral out of control. The disturbing truth? These students didn't just learn about fascism, they embraced it. They craved the structure, the community, and the order that came with it, even at the cost of personal freedom. The real lesson here? The allure of totalitarian regimes is disturbingly potent, and it can take root faster than you think. Basically, the third wave proved that democracy is fragile, and when people crave belonging, they'll toss their individual freedoms out the window. Number 10, The Pit of Despair's Echo. If you've ever heard of the Pit of Despair, you probably didn't realize that this gruesome experiment was about isolating baby monkeys to prove how vital contact and love are for infant development. Harry Harlow's 1960s research, conducted on infant monkeys, subjected them to the horrors of social isolation in metal chambers, just to test their attachment needs. The disturbing truth here? The emotional damage these babies suffered was profound. The monkeys became dysfunctional, unable to interact with others, and some even became psychotic. They struggled to become parents themselves, often being abusive. These studies highlighted the sheer importance of comfort, attachment, and social bonds in development. But it also made it painfully clear that breaking those bonds causes irreversible damage. Basically, Harlow's Pit of Despair wasn't just an experiment. It was an atrocity that proved how critical love is and what happens when it's taken away. Number 9, the well of loneliness. You think you know what loneliness feels like, right? A few hours of isolation, maybe a weekend binge watching Netflix. But what if someone really tested the limits of human despair by putting you in a contraption designed for the absolute void? Welcome to Harry Harlow's Well of Despair, a nightmare of psychological isolation. The disturbing truth, this wasn't just some sad monkey experiment. Harlow created a vertical chamber where baby monkeys were deprived of any social contact, comfort, or connection. They had food and water, sure, but no other monkeys, no soft materials to snuggle up to, nothing. After spending months in this void, the monkeys emerged completely broken, rocking back and forth, engaging in self-mutilation, and unable to function socially, even after being reintroduced to others. Some never recovered. Harlow set out to understand the devastating effects of social deprivation, but he pushed ethics so far out the window that he created a long-lasting scar in psychological history. Basically, the Well of Despair didn't just show us loneliness, it gave us a front-row seat to the horrors of forced isolation, and it's not something anyone can unsee. Number 8, the aversion therapy's agony. You probably think therapy is about helping people become better versions of themselves, right? But what if helping people meant shocking them, making them nauseous, or inducing intense anxiety? Enter aversion therapy, a dark chapter in psychological history. The disturbing truth? This therapy aimed to change behaviors by pairing them with physical discomfort. Because nothing says healing like trauma. Picture being shown something that triggers your desires, like an image of a same-sex couple. This was done to treat homosexuality, or a glass of alcohol, and then getting zapped with an electric shock or made to vomit. The idea was to make the behavior so unpleasant that the patient would stop, but the results were often more harmful than helpful. People didn't walk away cured. They walked away broken with heightened anxiety, guilt, and depression. Basically, aversion therapy wasn't about healing. It was about torturing people into submission, often with little to no lasting results. Number 7, the real Clockwork Orange brainwashing. You thought brainwashing was something cooked up by dystopian novels and spy movies, right? Wrong. In reality, psychiatric institutions in the mid-20th century were conducting experiments that could have been the blueprint for the infamous A Clockwork Orange. The disturbing truth? These experiments involved brainwashing criminals using a mixture of drug-induced comas, electroshock therapy, and de-patterning to strip away their identities and reprogram them into more socially acceptable beings. Patients were subjected to months of treatment, essentially trying to break down their personalities and rebuild them into what society deemed normal. The cost? Severe memory loss, emotional numbness, and psychological damage. So, when the movie talked about forcibly curing someone by dismantling their identity, it wasn't just fiction. It was terrifyingly close to what actually happened in some treatment facilities. Basically, the real-life version of A Clockwork Orange didn't just depict a future nightmare. It was a dark reality from psychology's past. Number 6, blinking away reality. You think you're seeing everything around you clearly, right? Every detail, every movement, perfectly continuous? The disturbing truth is that your brain is constantly editing your visual world, deleting parts you don't notice, and stitching everything together into something smooth. This is called saccadic suppression, and it's your brain's way of ensuring that you don't go crazy with all the fragmented visual input your eyes are sending. Every time you blink or your eyes dart around, which they do constantly, your brain shuts down, the part of your vision that's affected by the movement, filling in the blanks to make your sight seem continuous. So your brain is basically like a professional video editor, cutting, splicing, and smoothing out the chaos, all while you're obliviously watching your reality. Basically, your eyes are like choppy, shaky cam footage, and your brain is the one working overtime to turn it into a smooth, coherent movie. Number 5. The bystander effect's chilling logic. You've probably been told that if something bad happens in public, you should shout for help, that someone will surely step in, right? Well, the disturbing truth is that the more people who are around, the less likely anyone is to actually help. This is called the bystander effect, and it's the terrifying psychological phenomenon where people in a crowd assume someone else will take action, so they don't. Imagine seeing someone collapse in the middle of a crowded street. Your first instinct might be to think, someone else will call 911. But when everyone else is thinking the same thing, no one steps up. The bystander effect is a major reason why crimes like the murder of Kitty Genovese in 1964 went unnoticed by dozens of people, despite them being in plain view. Basically, the more people around, the more you're likely to stand idly by, waiting for someone else to do something. It's a disturbing reminder that, in emergencies, the bigger danger might be the crowd itself. Number 4. The false consensus trap. You think everyone shares your opinions and beliefs, right? After all, you're pretty normal, aren't you? The disturbing truth is that your brain overestimates how much others agree with you, a psychological trap known as the false consensus effect. Your brain assumes that your quirky habits, strange preferences, and even your political views are far, far more widespread than they actually are. Imagine thinking that everyone secretly picks their nose in private, or that your obscure belief is the foundation of common sense. The reason? You tend to surround yourself with like-minded people, which reinforces the idea that everyone else thinks like you. This cognitive bias can lead to misunderstandings, arguments, and misjudgments because you assume that your perspective is the default for everyone. Basically, your brain is a bit of a narcissist, assuming that the whole world shares your worldview, even when they don't. Number 3. The phantom vibration fixation. You've definitely felt it. The sudden buzz in your pocket or purse, your phone vibrating like there's a new notification. But when you check, it's empty. The disturbing truth isn't that your phone is haunted, it's that your brain is playing tricks on you. We're talking about phantom vibration syndrome, where your brain creates the sensation of your phone vibrating, even though it hasn't moved. Why? Because you've become so attuned to the sensation of your phone buzzing that your brain misinterprets innocuous sensations like muscle twitches or clothing movement as the familiar vibration. This isn't a sign of madness. It's just your brain's way of being overly prepared. Your phone isn't vibrating. Your brain is just overzealous, making sure you don't miss anything. Basically, your brain is a little too on edge in our hyper-connected world, and sometimes it creates phantom signals just to make sure you're still in the loop. Number 2, the memory holes fabrication. You trust your memories, don't you? They're your personal history, the rock-solid truth of your life. The disturbing truth? Your memories aren't like video recordings at all. They're more like an ongoing, ever-changing movie. We're talking about confabulation, the phenomenon where your brain reconstructs memories every time you recall them, often adding or changing details to make the story fit better with what you know now. Imagine trying to play a home video and discovering that every time you hit play, new characters and details show up. This isn't just about forgetting things. It's about how easily your brain can create entire memories for things that never happened. It's why eyewitness testimony can be so unreliable and why recovered memories often raise eyebrows. Basically, your personal autobiography isn't an accurate document. It's a living, breathing fiction, constantly edited by your subconscious. Number 1, the hidden puppet master, your default mode network. You probably think your brain is constantly working, consciously solving problems and planning your next move. But the disturbing truth? A huge part of your brain's activity happens when you're doing nothing at all. We're talking about your default mode network, DMN, a network of brain regions that lights up when you're not focused on anything external. Imagine your brain as a factory. When you're working, certain machines hum to life. But when you hit the brake button, an entirely different shift takes over, dealing with mind wandering, reflecting on past experiences, and even thinking about the future. Your DMN is responsible for those random thoughts, daydreams, and even feelings of anxiety or self-doubt. Basically, you're never truly doing nothing. Your brain is constantly running its own internal monologue and processing, whether you're aware of it or not. Sometimes, the most influential thoughts are the ones you don't choose. They're just your brain working behind the scenes, pulling the strings of your mind.